We are joined here today by the one and only Clossington. How are you, sir?
I'm glad to be here, and I'm very thankful that you guys were so fortunate enough to invite me to speak at the UK event. This is a privilege, especially coming off of the hot fumes of the US event this spring. I'm very fortunate to have enough vacation time to smuggle myself in a crate and show up to you unfortunate souls in the UK. It's gonna be a great time.
I hope it's a very comfortable crate that you're going to be smuggled in. The US event you just mentioned, and so you were a speaker there, and with Radlib actually. So there'll be two people that have been at both events in person at the bare minimum. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? What did you enjoy there? You know, what was interesting? Anything that was surprising?
At the US event, I was a speaker and the master of ceremonies. So I ended up announcing all the speakers and then speaking myself at the US event. What I enjoyed most, I guess, it was the little surprises that you really don't see coming. And a lot of the impromptu things that we ended up doing at the event. What I really didn't see coming was seeing so many friendly faces that I really didn't know very well from like either Discord or Telegram or Twitter, who just showed up. I didn't know that they were coming, and it was just a nice, it's just a nice way of getting surprised and meeting people that you've spent years developing a relationship with online, and then they show up. You have a few cigars with them, you go drinking afterwards. And I really can't explain how much fun and camaraderie, this type of thing really brings out in people.
No, I agree. And that's, it's fun at the event last year when someone would walk up to you once you've announced your name, publicly, and they say, "I'm so-and-so," and they give like this really obscure handle. And you go, "Oh, yes." I know exactly who that is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. And then there's just the general socializing aspect. Usually you're used to a little bit of like smack talk back and forth with some of your online friends, and then you meet up with these people and they're so well dressed and they're actually well spoken, and so you're actually a little bit caught off guard. And then there's the actual speaking portions themselves. You really do find like some characters just rise out of the woodwork, and they're conscientious, they're well spoken, and they have something to say that's worth listening to. And it was my privilege to announce some of these people and then getting to work with them after the actual event.
What projects were spun off from the US event then that you're talking about when you say working with these guys?
A few of these projects are a work in progress and have not been announced quite yet.
Mm-hmm.
However, we will have future US events, and we will announce certain projects that will be coming out in the next few months. But I also mean that in meeting people in real life, you develop a certain relationship that you just can't online. You've spoken with these people, you know what they're all about in real life, and that makes inviting them onto like live streams a whole lot less of a gamble. It's showing your friends that you're actually serious and you're not afraid to actually come out and socialize, and you're not just some basement dweller. You actually have a nice suit and
is that how you
hang out with. Yeah.
Is that how you judge people primarily? So you look at the quality of suit.
Well, that's part of it. But also nice firm handshake and and how well you can actually make eye contact.
Yeah, there was only a few people that couldn't maintain eye contact, so I thought that was positive last year. We'll see how many people who are truly autistic we get this year. Yeah. So
I'm actually let down by the number of true autists that we actually have.
You wanted more?
I'm sorry?
You wanted more of them?
I don't know. I was expecting a bunch of eccentrics, but I ended up finding a bunch of normal people. It's actually kind of a letdown.
Don't worry, there'll be a few eccentrics at the UK events. Some truly interesting guys. If assuming they return, and I know a few of them will be. So yeah, watch out for that. Now, we selected you as an applicant speaker. We didn't reach out. You submitted a speech, and we enjoyed your submission very much. So, do you want to tease just a little bit about what you plan to be speaking on?
All right. So, I didn't exactly write a speech. I was a little bit busy with the moving process, and so I wrote more or less a nice bullet point of exactly what I wanted to cover. And what I want to bring to the UK, what I wanted to bring to the UK was sort of an American perspective on what is to come and what viable political options there are from an American context. My original speech title was On Order and Exit, and then the subtitle was going to be either The Way of the Wasp or The Word of the Wasp, in reference to white Anglo-Saxon Protestants in America, specifically the political strategies that they've employed over the last 200 years to mitigate the decline, so to speak. What has worked, what has not worked, what the current projects are, and exactly how they can be applied in the UK to make things, I guess, better for you guys. Like in the US, we rarely think about the UK, but it seems like every other British news articles on about some American shenanigan that we're up to. So I want to provide a little bit of context and a little bit of hope and a few tools that you guys can actually use in the future. And how I wanted to relate to the main theme of, what was it? It was
Logos versus praxis.
Yeah, logos versus praxis. I was either going to go with like the way or the word, but essentially, I want to provide both and none in particular. I want to explain the undergirding ideologies or anti-ideologies that American WASPs have historically provided as praxis, and what their actual word has been, and hopefully that will be a nice tool in your British tool belt.
So you're talking about the WASP history and experience, particularly in America. And yet the WASP seem to currently not be wielding very much formal power. So are we talking about lessons learned in what mistakes were made, or lessons learned in what power they are actually wielding secretly?
More of what they historically used and what worked, what did not work, and what set us back a few steps. And I'm sort of I'm still dealing with the fumes of the last UK event, which had the theme of navigating the decline. And so every time I announced speakers, the announcement would be something about, this speaker is managing the decline through such and such, means. I want to. My old speech at the UK was it was essentially a call for pro-vitalism in certain ideologies and certain aesthetic forms. And instead, I want to talk more about the flow of different praxis and the flow of different words that we historically used in America in managing certain declines. In spite of all of our, in spite of certain fallbacks that we've had, And so certain falls don't happen in the UK because some states managed the decline a whole lot better than other states, and we have a lot to bring to the table. And also, I wanted to ensure that the UK speech wasn't too UK centric.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just going to be Radlib and I, and I don't think anyone would actually cover anything to do with the American word.
No, fair enough. It's you should certainly be providing a unique perspective. When you say that some states manage to decline better than others, I don't think we'll be teasing too much if we ask who are the exemplars there.
I mainly go down the two routes of political economy that we went down in the U.S., with the template being Albion Seed, specifically the four different historic American strains: the Puritans, Quakers, Planters, and the Borderers. Specifically, the juxtaposition of the coastal elite versus the more hinterlands elite, and how they navigated certain political movements and spawned certain political movements and fell upon certain disasters individually and collectively. So it's in my speech, I don't think I actually name any specific states, more in the broad trends of certain regions.
Okay, and so you say the hinterlands were better, essentially.
I'm sorry?
The hinterlands or the interior were managed in a slightly better way.
I would not say so. So that's the Yankee in me speaking.
Yes.
So essentially, what the two different impulses that we've had in America were essentially Puritan, Quaker, Federalist versus more Republican or anti-federalist border impulses. Either you want to develop up, as in build skyscrapers, devise different trade networks across the globe, and be a better merchant, as opposed to building out, developing land, expanding westward, and developing like suburbs and farmland. Americans have always been a very land expansionist power, but we've also been a very mercantile empire to this very day. And as an empire of liberty, we've always had our practical and ideological differences, so to speak, which makes America's policy very schizophrenic between the anti-federalists and federalists, the urban versus rural or hinterlands, or the mercantile versus agrarian interests, and how they actually developed historically.
You are describing American politics there in terms of its divides. We see today American politics is perhaps more divided than it's been in any point in recent history. Do you think this is a continuation of the trends you're describing, or is it due to other forces?
This question could be interpreted as a question about the American political cycles. Every 50 to 90 years, we have a sort of transitionary period where the parties change borders and boundaries and names, but the impulses are fairly static. Usually things heat up due to certain political circumstances where a general consensus or unification within the parties happens, and then there's a new political system that emerges. Do I believe that one is happening right now? I don't think so. I think something like the breakdown of the current party system is going to happen sometime in the next 15 years or so, but not within the next 2 presidential election cycles. I don't see.
So you're not a dark MAGA?
No, I'm not. No, I'm actually fairly optimistic because it's because I don't have nearly I don't have as much of a glassy-eyed view of American history or politics as a lot of American nationalists do. If you want to go back to the 19th century, and you want to talk about how we used to have lead in our mustard, or how everyone.
Sorry, lead in your mustard. Expand on that a moment.
Well, this is getting a little bit off topic, but the 19th century and the 18th century and early 19th century American diets were horrendous. And it was only towards the late Victorian era where things actually got very, very decent. But I digress. This is a question about I'm actually fairly optimistic, in spite of what a lot of naysayers say. Part of my speech is actually has to do with the way, let's just say the Yankees or the gentrifier WASPs are actually some of the most effective colonists in the world in terms of retaking cities from the rural, from the suburban back into the urban, and revitalizing old centers through a sort of almost a Maoist strategy of gentrification, land development. As WASPs, we're politically inclined to see methods of we're not revolutionary, and we're not reactionary. We're much more reformist and positive and upbeat, partly due to our sort of Calvinist heritage. But we believe in land development. We believe in contracts. We believe in hard work. We don't believe in stuff like usury or hard gold. We're an entrepreneurial people and very positive people. And the way that we actually take back cities from crime, poverty, and general decline is through development, hard work, and the restoration of order after retrenching through exit and working our way back to the cities, which was the great lesson of white flight, of course. Preserve the wealth through the land. If the land is going bad in a city, get the hell out of there, buy a nice suburban home, bulldoze the rotten boroughs, and make way for highways, and make a quick buck off of that, and then slowly retrench and rebuild, and then gradually retake the cities through gentrification and a higher standard of living that effectively pushes the ne'er-do-wells out.
This is 2 questions off the back of that. One would be to say this story of cities that you're describing is not the normal story of cities people hear when they think about American cities. We think about, say, the decline in Los Angeles or elsewhere. The retaking of cities and the gentrification is not a common story. So 2 questions would be, historically, what cities were you thinking of which have been regentrified and saved? And why do we not hear so much about them as opposed to only hearing about the decline of Chicago, whatever?
It depends on how thoroughly the swarthy democratic machine has been able to essentially establish voting blocks and political machines. In cities like Illinois with Chicago, the urban political machine has been able to effectively dictate the state's politics. So there was no retrenchment in the suburbs. Meanwhile, states like Pennsylvania were able to we've had WASPs who were able to retrench just outside of the cities. We bulldozed a few of the nastier areas and left them to their own devices, as evil as it was. And now we're slowly retrenching. In New York City, I'll go over a few different boroughs that were able to gentrify and bring back some of the old WASPs, and how the WASPs were able to maintain certain slivers of wealth and influence, not through shrewd politics, but through labor, essentially, industry and wealth, and that's why I want to present. As an actual infrastructure engineer, I see things. I'm a lot more positive about the way certain things went in the 20th century than others. To the lament of some of the people in my immediate circle.
That'd be interesting to hear you elaborate on that at the event, particularly just from what you said. We might be able to relate that to what's happened in London, where a large number of the traditional Londoners have fled to Essex and the surrounding areas. So perhaps there's hope there.
Well, the question was, were the East Enders supposed to preserve their wealth or die trying in the decline of their portion of the city? And I say the old WASP adage is positive: flee or exit to greener pastures, preserve your wealth, and then retrench, and then dig back, claw your way back through pricing mechanisms. And in that way, you bring about order. And if you can digest some of the swarthy invaders and make them into productive citizens, as we did with certain other immigrant groups historically.
All right, that sounds fascinating to me. Do you have anything else that you wanted to bring up?
Let me see. I'm particularly excited to a few of the characters that you invited to the UK event are of high interest to me. I want to tackle a few of the other speakers, and I want to shake hands for a few of the others.
Who are you thinking of in particular?
I don't want to quite name names, but a friend of mine who is not a speaker but is showing up to the event, he actually owes me a beer, so I'm going to call up some favors. I'm just glad to be fortunate enough to fly out there, and I hope, how are ticket sales going? Because at the US event, we had to book extra rooms just to accommodate for all the people that we had sign up.
Oh wow, that's fantastic. We have the capability to do that if we really need to, but we've sold more than last year already. So if you want to get your tickets, I'd recommend doing it soon. Obviously, it's only 2 weeks or less than 2 weeks now until we're actually going to be meeting in the West Midlands. So you really need to get your act together if you want to come on time. And yeah, with that, Clossington, I think we'll say thank you very much. We'll see you at the end of August. And everyone else will get your ticket, and perhaps we'll be seeing you too. Goodbye all.